family portrait. Father a lawyer, scrupulously strict. Mother practical and full of energy. A boy of 4 with already firm features and a clear gaze. His name is Fridtjof Nansen. At 7, he loves to be alone in the open, in the forest, in the mountains. At 20, young Fridtjof has retained his clear blue gaze. Success at outdoor sports has given him a vigor which elates him. Oslo, the capital of Norway, was then called Christiania.
The century is nearly over now. Life is even more pleasant, more carefree, more easy and comfortable. Think of fashions. The automobile invades the road. Man becomes motorized. It's new and exciting. And while they roar and dust and smoke, in Europe the century has passed its prime, but it is still quite an era. Buses are called omnibuses, but there are new inventions on the way.
He wants to cross Greenland on skis, without dogs to pull the sleds, from east to west, from the uninhabited coast toward the settlements, thus cutting off all possibility of retreat. Madness? Maybe. But he and his few comrades did it. Their generous hospitality and their ignorance of the value of money, what could we teach them? Nothing. He christens her Fram, that means forward. He himself designs and supervises the building with the help of an engineer. On the solidity of the ship depends the success of the expedition. That will prove that there is an oceanic current flowing in a western direction. And that is what Nansen wants to get confirmed.
Men selve særpreget lå i de bomsterke spantene av krumbokst eik og den over 2 fot tykke skipssiden. Her ombord bodde mannskapet i åromgangen. I den hyggelige salongen er det nok servert tonnevis av mat under de 3 framferdene. Med Sverdrup som kaptein på skuta, og dermed dro Nansen og Hjalmar Johansen av sted på egen hånd, helt opp til 86 grader 14 minutter. Modeller av kajakker, kastespyd og ski Alt er å finne samlet i de små lugarene på Fram, som nå står som fast museum. Roret og propellen ble montert slik at de lett kunne hives opp på dekk.
What determination can do when the impossible is attempted. Nansen and his companion returned to Norway almost at the same time as the Fram. Here he is seen in London with Lord and Lady Kelvin. Nansen now knows a period of quiet labor. 6 years he devotes to his scientific work and his family,
Leaving the throne to a young man of 60, Edward VII. The opening of the century is full of curiosities. Wilbur Wright will later fly his aeroplane, that's what it's called, 7.5 miles in 2 hours and 20 minutes.
Norway was then united to Sweden. In 1905 there were troubles. In a plebiscite, the Norwegian people is a member of the reception committee. King Haakon VII will later give him the task of representing Norway in Great Britain by securing the guarantee of Norway's integrity by the great powers. Nansen has learned to be a diplomat. Yet, this is not the type of life he prefers. He wants to devote himself entirely to his scientific work.
But then there is this. On June 28, 1914, a Serbian terrorist assassinates the Austrian Crown Prince, Archduke Francis Ferdinand, in Sarajevo.
Nansen is again called to serve his country. He has to lead a mission to the United States to obtain the food his people need. On every occasion, he speaks and writes about the need for a closer cooperation between nations. The thought that men are killing each other with weapons of mass destruction revolts him.
1918, the end of hostilities. The massacre is ended, the moment so ripe to make armistice into lasting peace.
The important thing is then that all members of the League of Nations, and not least the small nations, should concentrate on the business of getting rid of war, that they should take an active part in this work. Acting? Nansen himself strongly believed in disarmament and in the practical relief of post-war suffering, but he is capable of more than just making speeches, of advocating policies. Legally, these men were free to select funds, means of transportation, or even the administration to carry out repatriation. He negotiates with governments, sets up the administrative machinery, and as usual, does not spare his own person. $450,000 prisoners from 26 different countries are finally returned to their homes. 1921, Nansen has just been named League of Nations High Commissioner for Refugees, a post he will hold until his death. Another problem, however, captivates his attention. Following in the wake of civil war and bad harvests, famine reigns in Russia. The Red Cross asks Nansen to lead international relief of the millions of Russian victims of hunger and epidemics. Saving lives, that's what counts. Nansen will never be the same after his experience in Russia. What he heard and what he saw there left marks on his forceful character forever. Difficulties are gigantic, but what's more, a campaign of calumny rises against him. His honor and his honesty are put to doubt. Nothing is spared him. Other men might have given in, resigned, but Nansen remains Nansen. A job has to be done and he will do it. He has chosen to live as a man of action. In spite of an intervention by Lord Robert Cecil, the League of Nations refuses to support Nansen financially. Unable to win over the League, Nansen undertakes personally to raise the necessary funds by public appeals. 4 times he visits the stricken areas, assuring himself that the operation is going well. League of Nations High Commissioner for Refugees, Nansen looked after 1.5 million Russians uprooted by the revolution and counter-revolution, and countless other displaced persons, if not Orthodox, to exchange the 1.5 million Greeks in Asia Minor for the 500,000 Turks in Greece. At first it seemed madness, but it was the kind of madness inherent in Nansen's plans. Nansen persuades the great powers at the Lausanne Conference to adopt his proposals for an exchange of population. And the largest exchange of population in history takes place. Not without trouble, but then Nansen thrives on trouble. The operation is successful.
Everyone is mobilized for total war against the Greeks. In late August 1922, Turkish forces begin their counterattack, moving toward Izmir along the railroad line and north toward the city of Bursa. A fire breaks out in the city and quickly spreads. About half of Izmir is destroyed as thousands die in the flames. General Kemal's army enters the ruins of a once beautiful city on September 11th, 1922.
The last years of Nansen bring a final disappointment. In spite of his efforts, he cannot help the persecuted Armenian people to found the national home promised them by the Allies. But he could give them protection, and he did succeed in raising the money for their relief. And devotes the prize money to refugees. The same year he institutes the Nansen passport. Here is that of Marc Chagall, then a little-known painter. It is a long folded piece of paper recognized by over 50 countries, covered with stamps, which gives to stateless persons the right to live and to move from country to country. Similar identity documents were delivered to many people. At one period of their lives, Anna Pavlova, Nijinsky, Stravinsky, Diaghilev, and even Bonina owed their official existence to Nansen passports. Before his desk, today deserted, calm and reassuring pictures. You have heard the Nansen story, and like all stories, it needs a conclusion.
But this conclusion is not yet written, for there is always this. Wooden barracks all over the world, just as horrible as in Nansen's days. They look like backdrops for films, only they are real.